Good morning. The time is now 10:40, and I would like to call this sitting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anthony Vera, and I would like to extend a very warm welcome. I appreciate your attendance here today. Before I ask other members of the committee to introduce themselves, may I just indicate for the record that the following members have asked to be excused: Mr. Simonet and Mr. Leonce. Member Henry and Member Critchlow-Coburn, I understand, are on their way. I will now ask the other committee members to please introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Fazal Karim, member. Good morning to all.
Good morning. Wade Mark, member.
Thank you. And now may I ask members of MIC to please introduce yourselves.
Clement Mbert. If you want, my French name is really Clément Mbert.
Good morning, Chairman. Anil Ramnarayan, CEO, MIC Institute of Technology.
A pleasant good morning to all. I'm Angela Renault-Lewis, Director, MIC.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Randy Munilal, General Manager of Corporate Services, MIC.
Good morning, all. Ian McIntosh, General Manager, Trading Division, MIC Institute of Technology.
Thank you. We also have with us ministry officials from the Ministry of Education and from the Ministry of Finance. May I ask you to also introduce yourselves, please?
Pleasant good morning. I am Leno Batiste Simmons, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education.
Good morning, Kurt Meyer, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Bikram, Acting Director, Research Planning and Technical Services, Ministry of Education.
Good morning. I'm Bhagwati Manik, Director, Finance and Accounts. Good morning. I am Jennifer Lachman, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Investments Division, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning. Ryan Maraj, Senior Business Analyst, Investments Division, Ministry of Finance.
And good morning. Suresh Dan, Ministry of Finance, Senior Business Analyst.
Thank you all. Before we start the official proceedings, just a couple housekeeping matters. I'd be grateful if your cell phones could either be put on silent or turned off. And as you have been doing, when you're about to speak, turn on the microphone, and after you speak, turn it off. Time is limited. We have to conclude by 12:30. And there's a lot I think we would like to cover. So I would ask participants to keep questions and answers as brief and focused as possible so that we can maximize the number of persons who have a chance to contribute. The purpose of this inquiry is to commence our inquiry into the operations of MIC Institute of Technology, including the performance of its technical and vocational education and training programs. As you'd appreciate, the role of this committee is firstly to examine the issues which arose based on MIC's Institute written submissions to the committee's questions, and secondly, to aid MIC in improving its performance and operations, resulting in a more efficient and effective organization. However, in addition to our oversight function, these sessions also afford you a forum to share your concerns, your challenges, your disappointments, your achievements, and to make recommendations. They provide a unique opportunity to increase public awareness, understanding, and support in respect of your operations. This meeting is being broadcast live on Parliament Channel 11, Parliament Radio 105 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel. Viewers and listeners can participate by sending comments relating to today's engagement via email to parl101@ttparliament.org, on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ttparliament, or on Twitter @ttparliament. Before inviting the chairman to make brief opening remarks and providing us with salient information about the company, I see that MIC Institute of Technology was established in 1974. Some 45 years now you've been around. So can you help set the stage by stating for the record and the viewing public, tell us who you are, what you do. Tell us about yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before we begin, I'd like to make two minor corrections to the written submission we made. To question 22, the comma after the word no should be deleted. If it isn't, it doesn't make much sense. Minor. And for question 42, we said we had no interagency debt, but we do. We have done work for EFCL. We have recently established a construction arm of MIC, Construction and Facilities, and we did work for EFCL. They had 2.3 million for us. They paid us 1 million, so they still have 1.3 million for us. Question 42. So now on to MIC, what MIC is. Well, MIC means Metal Industries Company. Well, it's limited, but they use the acronym MIC. And that was up until some years ago when it was changed to MIC Institute of Technology. That was done by the last board, and that was, I think, a very good rebranding of MIC. Because MIC started off as, in fact, as the name said, Metals Industries Company Limited. Started out as a tool and die maker, so tools, dies, molds. And in order to make tools and dies for industry, you need precision machinists. So we also supplied precision machining services. That, in order to produce a tool and die maker, a very high precision machinist, it takes a long time, and there were no institutions in the Caribbean at the time to produce people like that. So UNIDO, UNDP and UNIDO, which were the two institutions which had helped start MIC, so to speak, provided experts, mainly from Europe. As you know, the Swiss and the Germans are expert in machining and so on, to train the local people. So MIC had been engaged in training since inception, but it was in-house training. Of course, a number of these people who were trained left, and new cohorts were brought in, and so on. So there was continuous training going on, but in-house for the people who were hired to do the molds and dies and so on. 20 years later, in 1994, Ferrostahl of Germany, which had interests in methanol companies in Trinidad and Tobago, invited the government to have a look at the German training system. And it's well known that the German technical training system is probably the best in the world, particularly their practical engineers, if I may so term them. So in 1994, a visit was made by Professor Ken Julian and the then Prime Minister Patrick Manning, to Germany to see what this training was about. Because Ferrostaal is a big company, and these big companies have their own in-house large training institutions, actually, within the company. So, having seen, they were very impressed with what was there, and because Trinidad there was a waning of apprenticeship in the oil companies and Caroni and so on, TNTech, there was a bit of a waning of that, where you had apprentices, even engineers were apprenticed to get hands-on experience. They thought that it was a good idea to introduce this type of training, because the training they looked at was what is called a journeyman and master craftsman. There are two levels, the journeyman first, master craftsman. And these are very high-level practical training of technicians and technologists. So first of all, there were a number of people who were sent to Germany to train in what I'd call technical management. So the people who were at the level of the managers, particularly the technical people in MIC, were sent to Germany. And after that, 2 years later, we had the first cohort of trainees who went to Germany to train as master craftsmen. Now, just a small word about master craftsmen. There are 3 areas that master craftsmen are trained in. Those who teach, those who are trained to become entrepreneurs, so that you couldn't open a bakery in Germany unless you are a master craftsman in that field, or you hire a master craftsman, and so on for other things. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's only in the pharmaceutical industry where you must be a pharmacist and so on. So you can be a teacher. Some are trained to be entrepreneurs, and some are trained to actually work in an establishment. So the master craftsmen get training in those 3 areas. The emphasis differs a bit depending on what you choose. So after that was in 1994, 1996. Later on, the government decided to set up something called HYPE, helping you prepare for employment. And HYPE was started by a sort of sister company called NESE, but they thought it wise 2 years later, and it was started in 2002, 2 years later in 2004, they said, look, MIC, you're a better place to do that, because NESE, their focus was on energy. And HYPE was dealing with, at the lower level of training, well, for people literally off the streets, as we say. So the construction trades were what we're training people in HYPE. Then UTT was established, and UTT subsumed San Fernando Technical Institute and John S. Donaldson Technical Institute. But UTT, if I may put it this way, were only interested in the higher level programs that were done there, the technicians programs. So the MET, EET, and so on, the mechanical engineering technician, and so on. So that all the other programs that were the craft programs and other programs that were done at these technical institutes had to be taken up by somebody. And the government asked MIC to do that. And that was in 2006. So we had to adopt the industrial craft programs, as we call it now, or ICP unit. Then MUST was started. MUST is a program similar to HYPE. The difference is that MUST puts you to work right away. So you work 4 days a week, again in the construction trades, and you come for 1 day in the classroom. HYPE was the complete opposite, but at the same level, more or less. So MUST was started in the ministry and was run through the ministry for a number of years. In 2011, the government thought it best to say, listen, this really doesn't belong in a ministry. This should be with MIC. You guys are accustomed to these kinds of trainings. One of the sort of legacy programs also that we had to take from John D. was a program that catered for training tech voc teachers for the high schools. That was a special program that was done in John D. So if you were a teacher and you had the skills, this sort of content, you're in woodwork or whatever, if you went and got that specialized teacher training as a tech work teacher, you would go from teacher 1 to teacher 3, teacher 2 to teacher 4, something like that. So that had to be, again, MIC was thought to be the best place to adopt that program. So MIC from 1996 has really been transformed, not just as a tool and die and precision machining operation, but has been transformed and morphed into more of a training institution rather than that manufacturing type. We still operate our manufacturing operations, but so that in a nutshell is what MIC is about up to today. If I've missed anything, I'm sure the CEO, one of them would.
So as I understand it, you have morphed over the years where today you are in fact developing technical and vocational competencies in Trinidad.
Correct.
Right? Mainly with a view to strengthening the manufacturing and engineering.
Construction, and other trades.
Right.
Because some of the programs that we inherited from the technical institutes are in food preparation, for instance, tailoring, for instance, bookbinding, because somebody had to do it, because UTT, when UTT actually took over the space of San Fernando Tech and John D., there was a bit of a scrambler, and I was chairman at that time too, and I was just told by the minister, he says, Professor, you have to go and fix that for me, you know. So that was what.
But I'm trying to, for myself, and as I suspect the public, to understand what's your footprint. Are you operating at one place? Do you have centers spread out throughout Trinidad and Tobago?
Trinidad. Over the years, it started in Macoya, where the headquarters still is, and it has spread to about 14 locations throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
So you're spread throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And how many, would you say, students or apprentices or interns do you have in your program at any one time?
Well, we used to have several thousand, but now we have just under 2,000 because 3 years ago, well, this is the 3rd year, we have had a massive cut in our subvention. So we have had to have much fewer trainees now than we had before. So now we have about close to 1,900 at this point.
Before I open the floor, I just have a couple of questions. So what separates your activities from other similar providers like YTEP and NESC and so on?
All right. We spoke about YTEP. YTEP has a number of programs that we don't have. YTEP has cosmetology, for instance. We don't have that. And there are a number of programs, but there are many programs that are common. And in fact, one of the things I've been trying to do and to persuade the authorities is that, especially in this, as we say in Trinidad, Gova season, we have to consolidate, we have to rationalize, and we can't be, sometimes we seem to be tripping over each other because there are a lot of common programs, welding, plumbing, a number of those things, particularly in those trades, that are in common with YTEP. NESC, the E in NESC is for energy. So NESC really concentrates more. They do a lot of what we do, but with an emphasis for the energy industry. And actually, they have a unique board. The board members on NESC all come from the energy industries. And you tend to have really very high-level people from the different energy industries in Trinidad and Tobago on the board of NESC. So they serve a more specific sector of industry in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open the floor. I believe Member Karim had some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me join with the Chairman in welcoming all of you to this very useful meeting, we predict. Mr. Chairman, starting with some of the comments you would have made, and let me continue to, again in the Chairman's note, to extend my congratulations to MICIT in your 45th year. It must be a very significant contribution you would have made. But I will be asking a few different types of questions. But let me start with one that you spent quite a little while on, that is in terms of the training provision part of it. Recently, and to be exact, on Tuesday, the 19th of March, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, which has responsibility for MICIT, indicated that there was a shortage of skilled labor that was killing industries. Do you see that as an indictment on MICIT? And what would have caused such a statement to be made? I'm not asking you to answer for the minister, but from your perspective, have you experienced that there is this shortage that is killing industry, and MICIT has been a provider in the main for industries of various types?
Well, from our point of view, the demand far exceeds the supply. And what do I mean by that? We are dependent almost solely, not totally, on the subvention from the government. So, and then the hype and must, these people are paid a stipend. So whatever subvention we get from the government has to satisfy all the requirements. They paying the instructors' salaries and so on, and those stipends. Now, we have had, and it's understandable because of the state of the economy and the government coffers, we have had a 50% cut for the last 3 years. So that, yes, we have a higher demand, and I believe that demand reflects the actual, the demand for training actually reflects the demand that there is an industry for trained people. But as I say, we can only spend what we have. So I hope that's a satisfactory answer.
I really was getting a little more to the substance of the statement.
Yes.
In that the shortage was killing industry, because if it kills industry, by not supplying, you know, I've always used the terminology that education and training should be demand-led and never supply-driven, or else you're going to have a mismatch. But what is it that MIC could be doing now, even with that reduced budget, where you are expected to do more with less? Seeing the very strong connection you had with industry and continues to have, that a statement like this can be corrected and not one be indictable on the MIC. What do you think the MIC could do with industry? Bearing in mind, I'm almost answering the question, bearing in mind the apprenticeship system, is there something that could have been different that you can now consider? And having asked that question, could you also say whether there is any plan to mothball or to coalesce NESC and the MIC?
First of all, we have had to do more with less, or we have had to do sufficient with less. It's very difficult to do more with a 50% cut, but we have tried to do sufficient with less. And we have been implementing measures to be much more prudent in our spending, much more efficient in the way we do things. I think all state enterprises have to do that in the circumstances. And we are embarking on a more aggressive marketing program for the services that we provide, the services and the products, because we make plastic products. And I could explain why, but I don't think I need that now. Recently, for example, we have been more aggressive in the Caribbean because we realize that MIC is, in fact, because I work at the university for a number of years and other things, I've been all over the Caribbean and I know all the technical institutions in the Caribbean, and MIC is by far number one. So that we have been going after business in the other territories in the Caribbean. And we just got a fairly, I don't want to say lucrative, but a very good project in St. Martin.
Chairman Embe, sorry to cut you, but I think Member Karim was going in a particular direction. Let me see if I could echo what he is asking.
Right.
You are an institute of technology.
Yes.
I believe we are interested in knowing what are you as an institute of technology doing in terms of managing the skill gap in Trinidad and Tobago's technology sector. Are you doing anything in terms of job creation? Are you doing anything for our technical companies for facing this gap in skills and technology? So if you could help us understand that.
Okay, I was saying that we can only do what we get a subvention to do. MIC does make some money outside of the subvention, and we are trying to do more of that so that we can do more training with the smaller government subvention. So I was mentioning that we have a training program in St. Martin. We just did some work for the Grenada Airport. We are in contact with the government in St. Vincent because we understand that they need people to be trained and things like that. We are going after a much more aggressive marketing campaign.
Let me ask another question that might help us to get there. For example, I know that you're aware of all the technical training providers in the Caribbean. Why is MIC not in Georgetown? And do you have plans to go there?
Yes, I was in Georgetown recently on other business, and I have met a number of manufacturers there. And
MIC also, I'm sure you remember because I'm not sure if you were there, but you may have been there. There would have been a multi-party agreement signed with the UTT Aviation.
Yes.
And MIC is a signatory and was expected to do a part of that.
Yes.
Are you on board with it? Are you doing any work in that regard as yet?
Well, that aviation institute has only now got accreditation. It was built, it was half built. I think everybody knows I'm the deputy chairman of UTT also. It was half built. It has only now, well, it was completed, and then we got accreditation, and it takes a little while. So yes, MIC is a partner with that, with CAL and the Airports Authority and so on. And we expect to have a formal opening soon. There was some sort of opening, I believe, before. But the Camden campus was never really properly opened because it was not finished. So yes, MIC is a partner with them and to supply certain services for the Aviation Institute.
Okay. That is where I was going in terms of the killing of industry. That statement was made.
Yeah, I think we'll see some nice things with the aviation. It was a good idea, and I think we'll see some nice things coming out of that pretty soon.
You did mention, in fact, in your earlier remarks about the board and governance and so on. Is MIC compliant fully, as we have the Ministry of Finance here, with the State Enterprises Monitoring and Performance Manual and Guidelines?
As far as I know, we are.
Okay. How many members of the current board of MIC would have been former employees of MIC?
1, 2. Sorry, I forgot. Mr. Mark Sandy and Mr. Keith Toby.
Okay. And the earlier question that I asked, because it is related to governance, is there any plan or had there been any discussions with MIC and the NESC? Because there were some discussions in many years ago. So are you all going to be merging?
Well, as I said, I am trying to persuade the authorities right now, whether it's a merger or what have you, but to rationalize and so on the whole tech work sector in Trinidad and Tobago. But specifically, NESC, there was a rum bond in Lavantil that was converted into a technology and continuing education center. And NESC was the institution charged with running that center. But NEC realized very early on that there were many programs that were better done by MIC. And in those days, MIC didn't have all these centers all over the place. And MIC is in the East-West Corridor, Lavantil is the East-West Corridor. So MIC has been doing, in fact, more training programs, had been doing more training programs at the Lab Intel Technology Center than NESC, but NESC was a landlord. And a couple of months ago, well, last year actually, with, again, the downturn and the cutting subventions and so on, NESC realized, listen, the best thing is for MIC, you take it over. So we have had an agreement where MIC will really take over 90%. They have kept one program because they have some continuing contractual arrangements. That's a program where there's 2 technicians who run a recording studio.
So is there a plan for the MIC and the NESC to be subsumed under one organization?
To be quite frank with you, this is something I'm working towards, but let me be frank again. People in Trinidad and Tobago don't like to give up territory very easily. And people have their own little territory. You say tomorrow MIC wants to subsume or merge with NESC, I'm sure there's going to be resistance at various levels. But it is something that we have to work towards. Again, I'll mention in this go-over season, we can't have people duplicating effort and tripping over each other.
Let me just ask with respect to the Lab Intel Technology, continuing education, which is very important in that geographic space.
Absolutely.
How many programs do you have, since you now take over the programs, the courses from NESC? How many programs do you have currently, and what's the number of trainees at that expansive facility?
Yeah, I will ask Mr. McIntosh, our head of GM of training, if you could answer that question, please.
Thank you. Currently, do you want me to list the programs, member?
I just ask, if you could tell us the programs, by name and the total number of students, or if you have the data you can share with us. And there's a particular reason because of what the chairman was indicating. And because I started the premise in terms of the lack of skills killing industry. And that is in a very formidable area. So if you could tell me the programs and if you could tell us the number of trainees.
So currently we have the journeyman program, more focusing on the mechanical area, the machine shop, what we call. We have a welding program there also, MIC. We have we work together with the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, and we deliver all your programs for them there. We are also working with the NESC. We have somewhat taken over the automotive program that they had there through NESC's request. We have absorbed their staff and trainees, and we are continuing that program. And we hope to expand that program to include hybrid technology in automotive. We also have special programs for persons in the Lavantil constituency, where we have found that they are a bit challenged to access or to follow some of the higher level, the journeyman programs we have there. So we have some lower level skill, semi-skills program that is specially targeting those persons in the Lavantil Beetham constituency. I would say we have about 100. I want to be conservative. The challenges we have there is that because of the Beetham, the social issues between the Beetham, persons who live in the Beetham and persons who live in Lavantil, we have found it necessary that it is challenging for us to have both groups of persons in the Lavantil technology because it leads to fighting and so forth. So most times, and the students or their parents will come and tell you that they cannot access training in that center because of the warring between the fractions in those areas. So many a times we have to transfer training to other areas, Makoya, Omea, etc. And we feel because of that social environment that the center is not being maximized because the students, they do not mingle well when they come from the different communities where the Lavantil Technology Center is supposed to be providing the opportunities. I don't know if I have answered your question, sir.
Okay. What percentage or how many persons you feel are from the immediate environment that attend that facility?
Currently,
what number?
Currently, about 90% of the current population are from the area.
How many, I mean, in quantitative terms, how many? 10, 20, 30, 40, how much?
I would say about 80.
80%.
Yes.
All right. Before we go on, I just want to ask another question because I think it's kind of not directly related, but it has a semblance of the title. Recently, there were some discussions. I'm not sure whether you would have signed any agreement or MOA or MOU with the TTPS. Did you?
The situation in Laventille has caused us to request the presence of armed policemen there. Unfortunately, the TTPS decided they're going to charge us. We spend, how much is it? $7,000 a week. $7,000 a week we have to pay for armed police there. It's as Mr. McIntosh said, it's a very tense situation there. And I have had instructors say they're not going back there. So I have told them, listen, I go there whenever I wish. Maybe because I'm not from Laventille or the Beatam, nobody has shot me yet. But I show the example by going there and talking to them and going there as much as necessary.
But did you sign an agreement with the TTPS to do any articulation of programs at MIC TTPS and the Academy there?
No.
No training at all was going to be provided to TTPS?
No. What we have discussed at MIC is that we could offer training to the TTPS to offset that huge amount that we have to pay for that protection.
In what areas of training?
All right, but I will go further. There's a police academy in St. James, and MIC has some very experienced people. And we have been assisting the police academy. Just recently, we had our Mr. John do a 2-day course there in what is called DACOM. DACOM is simply a method of curriculum development. And we have also had another one of our MIC personnel assist them in actually getting registration and now towards accreditation. And they have been very successful in that. So MIC has lent its support to the police academy. Mr. Ali, I'm sure you know Mr. Ali, who is the dean there. I know him a long time in the ministry. He asked us for support, and I said, why not? We have that kind of skill in MIC, so we are assisting them. So in that way, we are assisting. But it's pro bono.
I'll come back with some.
Something is troubling me, and I'm trying to get it. So I understand that you're largely dependent on government for subventions, and they were cut by 50%. I understand that you're attempting to rejuvenate and expand your income stream. So you're going into places like St. Martin, you're partnering with the Civilian Conservation Corps, you're providing construction and facilities maintenance. I understand all of these things. The CEO had said that you can go in 2 directions. You can operate as you have been doing in the past 40-something years and continue suffering yearly deficits, or you can firmly develop core competencies and build on your competitive advantages, correct? But what's troubling me is that we know today more than ever that the nature of work is changing. We have a skills gap. You're an institute of technology. I would like to know, and maybe the Ministry of Education can help me on this, what are we doing in terms of trying to bridge that skills gap and using this institute to really develop our citizens into making them more productive as we go into the 21st century?
I can mention 3 areas that MIC has focused on recently. There's the area of mechatronics. Mechatronics is a hybrid term, which means the electronic control and data acquisition of mechanical systems. So your car now can be considered mechatronically controlled because of the brain, as the guys call it, the computer systems and so on. Two other areas that we have, and these three areas we are assisted by the Germans because you can't get that technology readily in Trinidad at that level. Another area that was mentioned just briefly is the area of hybrid vehicles. We have had people trained, and these are trainers who are trained to deliver programs in the care and maintenance of hybrid vehicles. As you know, a hybrid vehicle has a very large battery because it uses an electrical motor with the energy from the battery. So it's a huge battery, not a little battery that you have. And there's a safety issue there because the battery is such a high voltage. I mean, you can't play around with it as a normal battery. You could electrocute yourself. And the third area that well, there's a fourth, but the third area that we have also had people trained in, and we are looking to do some refresher in that, is the question of photovoltaics. Now, photovoltaics is the technology behind solar energy. And in fact, recently there was a discussion between UTT, MIC, and Shell in trying to get a substantial solar farm developed in Trinidad and Tobago. I hope I shouldn't have said Shell, I should have just said a company. I don't know if the TV will expunge that, but it's probably there already. So those are the areas. Then there's the fourth area. There's an engineer who was, in fact, one of my students at UE, who has won a number of prizes in the I2I and those kinds of things. He's very, very innovative. And we have hired him. And one of the first very successful projects he has had is a regeneration of old batteries. So there are batteries that you can regenerate and use again, and he's working on some other projects. So we have also started an agricultural program in Tobago, and we hope to use one of his ideas where we'll have a more modern system of hydroponics. So those are some of the areas where we are attempting to fill the skills gap. We are trying not to go into areas where other people are in, like just straight computer technology and so on, but actually the use of the computers in these particular areas.
Thanks. Ministry officials, I'm interested in knowing, from a Ministry of Education point of view, you know, in light of this need to fill the skills gap, how do we rationalize or justify this drastic cut in the subvention? And do you have a broader vision for moving the development and use of MIT?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. With respect to the cut in subvention, the Ministry of Education, we would have submitted what we call our estimates of expenditure. And we would have received at the end an allocation. And these would have been the allocation that MIC and other agencies would have received. So it is dependent on the Ministry of Finance and the state of the economy. Right. With respect to the rationalization, what we were looking at is respect to the articulation from our at secondary level into tertiary. So you have the CVQ, level 1, and the training. The ministry at this time is looking at the rationalization. But what we are looking at is with respect to the pathways and the development of a TVET framework. Then we would begin to look at who would be providing the services and begin to map against that. But I can ask P.S. Meyer to articulate a little more in that regard. Thank you.
Well, I think that's basically it, because we have started to look at all our agencies, YTEP, MICIT, NESC. And yes. And I think that at the end of the day, we will have a clearer idea of how we are to provide TVET services, and I think more importantly, who will provide the TVET services in light of our current financial situation.
what priority are you putting on these TVET services?
In terms of priority, we are meeting almost on a weekly basis.
I didn't want to change, but to MIC, given this 50% cut in your subvention, how do you plan to generate revenue to deal with the different projects that you see yourself getting? Well, I mentioned before that we are embarking on a more aggressive marketing campaign for both our services, and our services are really two types of services we produce: industry services, machining and so on, and mold and die making, and the plastic products that we produce. There's been large changes in industry over the world, as we know. A manufacturer can buy a mold from China, sends the design, buy a mold from China for almost half the cost that we can make a mold. That has severely impaired, if you like, MIC's ability to sustain that kind of operation. However, when you have to repair a mold, and there are other things like that we have been providing, which is a much smaller aspect of our income, those things cannot be done. You don't send a mold back to China to do a little repair. So those are the kinds of things that we have had to shift our focus on. And that's the reality of that aspect of our business. It has been very difficult over the years. Mass costumes that were made in mass camps, almost 95% imported from China. They're cheap. You give them the design, they make it, and they send it down and so on. That's one area. Our training services, that's not something you can get in China just like that, at least at the moment. So our training services, we have been, as I said, going on a more aggressive marketing campaign throughout the Caribbean to deal with that. Our plastic products, and the reason we make plastic products is that when we were making molds, when the plastics industry was growing and burgeoning in Trinidad and Tobago, we were making all the molds for them. So we had to have machines to test those molds before we gave them. And those machines had to be industrial machines. So rather than leave those machines idle for 98% of the time, we decided we'd use those machines to make products. And this is what those machines were there primarily for. But now we are using them because we have that ability to make plastic products, which we are, again, having a more aggressive marketing campaign. And given the fact that, as the Permanent Secretary says, that you'd expect no increase in your subvention next fiscal year, is there a time frame that you see you would be able to come out of the situation again? I don't want to be over-ambitious and over-optimistic. I would say it would take about 2 or 3 years, realistically. You see, MIC has enjoyed over the years reasonably generous subventions from the government, so much so that we have had surpluses. And those surpluses is what we have been using over the last 2.5 years to survive, in that we have tried to avoid. One has to understand that in many industries, in a training industry particularly, and we are overwhelmingly training now, the bulk of your expenditure goes on salaries. We have tried our best to avoid any massive retrenchment at MIC, but we have not been able to renew contracts and so on. If it continues like this, it will be probably unavoidable. But we have tried all kinds of cost-cutting measures to try and avoid that. So I don't think it will be at the end of this year. I think it will take 2 to 3 years to get out of
what do you see as the main challenges facing Trinidad and Tobago in developing our technical and vocational competitiveness?
I think there's a general question. The question of really putting resources into innovation. 40 years ago, South Korea was an agrarian economy. The phone that you are probably using was made in South Korea. You probably drive a car from them. You probably play music on something from them. They spent several percentage points of their GDP on innovation. In Trinidad and Tobago, we spend a small fraction. You have to put a point and a zero before you could get to a figure on innovation. It's a general question. Unless we decide that we are going to spend, it has to be in the billions. Because if you say our budget is about 50 billion, we have to spend about a minimum of 3 billion on innovation. We're not doing that. So that's the answer everywhere, whether it's at the universities, whether it's at MIC or wherever.
Thanks.
Member
Mark.
Morning again, and welcome. I wanted to ask both the Ministry of Education and your good self, Chairman, the proposed draft education policy that the Ministry is about to finalize, given the challenges that you have outlined, and the reality of emerging mismatch between certification and the real job market that requires a certain skill set. Can you share with us, first of all, the Ministry of Education, what time frame is the country looking at for the finalization of the education policy? And given what is taking place in the tech VOC sector, is that a major component of that education policy?
Okay. With respect to the time frame, we would have received Cabinet's approval with respect to the education policy paper. We received that on Thursday of last week, which would have been the 28th of March. At this point, we are beginning to roll out. One of the things we would have done is that we'd have done at least 2 national consultations, which would have weighed heavily with respect to the TVET. So we know that we have included within that those areas. The tertiary and the TVET, we looked at the ECCE, and then we are trying to see how best we can bring it all under the Education Act. So those are areas that are going to, as you said, are going to be prominence-based with respect to those, that area.
Mr. Clement, there appears to be a contradiction or maybe even a challenge between, first of all, the increase in expenditure for your executive management team under the rubric of operating costs. And I refer to page 16 of your submission, item 64, which moved from 49 in terms of operating costs 49 million or thereabouts to 60, 49 in 2014 to 60 in 2018. Now, while this is taking place, there's a simultaneous reduction in your staff members from 826 to 642. That is why I mentioned the contradiction. So you have an increase in your operating costs, and at the same time, you have a reduction in your staff level. Can you explain or provide to this committee the reason for this apparent contradiction from where I sit? Mm-hmm. Right.
Sorry. There was a huge increase because there hadn't been an increase for a long time. Actually, if finances permit, there would be a huge increase again because people have not got any increase since that time, 4 years ago. So that is what accounted for that big increase.
What about the staff reduction?
The staff reduction was mainly lower-level staff who were on contract and staff who were on contract that we couldn't renew the contracts because of the thing. And of course, everything kind of goes up, inflation. Even when you think you have static emoluments and remuneration, it's not static because there are certain things, certain allowances that go up and are tied to inflation. But the main thing is that in that year, in that fiscal 2014 to 15, there was a large increase because people have not got an increase for a long time.
What's the name of the 4 trade unions that are in MIC, Institute of Technology?
There is, it started off with a union called MASAT when MIC first started. And then the PSA came on board and got a number of different categories of workers. Then the senior managers and so on decided to form their own in-house union, if you will, association, let's call it that. And the security people who were not covered for some reason decided to go with NUGE. So, I mean, how that has evolved over the years, I really don't know. But that's what has happened. I met it so way back when
All right. Yeah. Share with this committee what appears to be another unfortunate development. A lot of young people, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, in the range of, I would say, 15 to 24, even up to 29, you find that the statistics or the data is showing a very high level of unemployment among that category. And a lot of them are literally idle all over the country. Now, opportunities for training is required, and your institution is well placed to provide these young people with the skills that they require. However, as you have admitted earlier, there has been a drastic reduction in the intake of trainees from a high of 5,700 and 2 in 2013. So as you said, just under 1,900 at the present time. Now, could you share with us what are the entry requirements for each of your programs that you conduct?
All right. Hype and must are literally off the street, catering for exactly some of the persons you're talking about. Well, first of all, I think I've explained why we have had to take much fewer trainees because of the cut. Yeah. Hype and must are people off the streets. The other programs, the higher level programs, like take for instance the journeyman program. The journeyman program is a technician program. Journeyman is a word that is used in many parts of the world, and it's the translation that we use from the German program. The Meister is a German word, and Master Craftsman is the closest thing to that. To get into the journeyman program, because to become a Master Craftsman, you have to go through the journeyman program. It's a step. To get to there, we asked what was traditionally asked for of people who entered the technician programs, the high-level programs in Johnny and San Tech. That is 3 O-levels with maths and English and another subject, preferably, if we have to make a selection, a science subject. The ICP is a similar thing, the industrial craft programs that we inherited from the technical institutes. The program where the TVET teachers training program, that program is a tertiary level program. It has a higher level entry requirement. So you'll have to, normally it would be people who are already in some teaching service, not necessarily government teaching service. If you're in Serval and you want to come to it, if you're in NESC, wherever, and you want to come to that program.
Are these things advertised and the public is aware of these things?
We don't have to advertise now, but yes, we advertise. But we don't have to advertise because we are so well known and we can take so few people now.
All right, could you provide to this committee in writing what you have just said, and rather than getting it in detail, could you also tell us what is the cost that each trainee would have to bear if he has to enter this program? Is it free of charge?
Free of charge, not only free of charge, people in Hype and Must are paid a stipend.
They are paid a stipend.
Yeah. To encourage them to come.
Right, okay.
But there's no admission fee. There's no tuition. There are 1 or 2 little fees that you have to pay, very negligible. You know, in addition to, you go to UV, for instance, in addition to the tuition fee that you pay to the university, the guild will say, well, listen, for us to take care of you, you have to pay $500 a year or whatever it is. So those kind of negligible fees, but there are no tuition fee as such.
Well, could you again put in writing?
Yeah, we'll put in, yeah.
And could you share with this committee what is the cost to your institute to train 1 trainee for each of the programs that you offer? What does it cost the institute? You must have that information available.
Yeah, that was not a question before, but if there's a question now, we can supply that information. I don't have the answer for it.
And then you could also supply what is considered to be the break-even number of trainees for each of the programs that you offer.
Okay.
Are any of the programs that you offer profitable in terms of getting some kind of return on your investment?
Well, the government pays us a certain amount of money to run the programs. We more or less, we try to break even. Well, we have to break even now. Even, as I said, we have been using some surpluses we had before to survive without sending home too many people, without reducing our intake
Are you considering discontinuing any of your current range of programs?
Well, we have discontinued one welding program because the welding at that level is called the SENSE program. We used to run that program. It's a program that is run out of the American Welding Society. When I say out of the American Welding Society, MIC is the only certified training institution by the American Welding Society in the region. And we used to run a number of programs. The SENSE program is the lowest level program. It's not very low level, but it's the lowest level of the welding programs. And we have discontinued because the SENSE program was run out of basically surpluses. We do not get a government subvention for that. And in the HYPE, the MUST, the CCC program that we run for, well, the program that we run for the CCC and the East Port of Spain, welding is very well served there. So that is one program that we have discontinued. And it is because we were not getting any So you will see in some of the tables when you look at entry 0 or nil or whatever.
I know that one of the challenges we have at the secondary school level system, not the primary level, is the dropout rate.
Yes.
Very significant. Now, can you share with us briefly and then put in writing how many trainees have failed to complete their respective programs over the last 5 years? In other words, for each year, I know that you give us a broad figure of 10 to 15%, but we didn't get, for instance, if you can give us like a breakdown of each year, how many persons have enrolled, and how many persons have failed to complete their program.
Well, there are some tables in this report which gives the enrollment, the number of people who sat the exam, and the number of people who were successful. There are a number of them here, and one of them is, in fact, one of them is a supplementary report that we gave. When we did this first report here, we didn't have the data, so the supplementary report, it's there.
So that report that I suppose deals with the number of failures?
Yeah, if you subtract, well, there are 3 figures. We enroll 100 people, 20 of them drop out, 80 did the exam, and 70 pass. So we have those 3 figures. Enrolled, those who did the exam, those who passed. So there's some information there. Huh? Page 3 of the...
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying from the data submitted that the numbers are decreasing, but the expenditure is increasing?
Yes.
Might you be able to give us?
Well, I did mention that a couple of years ago we had a massive, a large increase in expenditure because of the settlement of the collective agreements.
Okay. Now, I noticed in the notes to the, before I go on there, I was looking for the management letters to the Auditors Report. I didn't see any. Have you seen? I don't know if I didn't get it.
This board inherited 5 qualifying opinions from the auditors. We have been able to, one of them is really a legacy issue. It was a question of not being able to properly disaggregate the monies, because the government gives us money for HYPE, for MUST, for NSDP, and so on. And all that money comes into MIC. There wasn't a proper disaggregation of the accounts, and that is a real legacy issue. That is from, I don't know, about 15 years ago or more. That has been there. So every year the accountant, so I even told the accountant the last time, I said, listen, we inherited in this board 5 qualifying opinions. We have strived every year, we have eliminated 1 or 2. We eliminate all 4. That legacy thing there, how are we going to eliminate that? I mean, we change accounting systems and programs, accounting systems and things. We had a big flood there once where some of the records. I mean, we have had proper accounts over the years, and in fact, we are up to date, except for this year where the accountants, our internal PKF have been delaying us. We are ready with our management accounts, but they say, hey, we can't come. We say, hey, we are going to JSC. What are we going to tell the JSC? Say, okay, we come in April. So we hope to get the PKF people next week because we have our management accounts ready. For the last year, we have everything else before. So there's one legacy issue. To be quite frankly, I don't know if that could ever be resolved because it's there since, I don't know, 2004 or somewhere there. I don't know.
Okay. I see on the notes to the financial statements that I have here.
Yes.
There has been an increase from 2016-2017 with the MOS program from -11 to -23 million itself. A figure is, I'm sure that's an owing figure, debt. What you could enlighten us as to why that figure has increased so much?
I have two ACCA people here, if they can help me out with that.
Morning. The primary reason for that increase was because of the fact in 2015, when the subvention went down, we had in the system already a certain amount of students that we had to continue their training. So what had happened is the increase in the figure was really because of the fact that we had to utilize some additional funding, some surpluses to treat with it. So it really was the accounting treatment. For
Will you be discontinuing the MUS program, or are you going to continue with it?
No, our plans, as far as funding is forthcoming, our plans is to continue all programs.
What about centers?
What we did within recent times, and it's in the submission, is we reassign some centers, relocate. So what basically happened with the reduction in activities in some of the core centers, what we did is we transferred the centers so there was no loss in training opportunities for anyone in any location. This led to significant savings in rental costs.
You could give us an example of what center you transferred to where? And are there any plans to do any more like that in 2019?
As it is now, we are of the opinion that we have maxed in terms of what we can do. However, we have just one small rented facility that's in Grandy, and we submitted proposals to the ministry to get additional funding to build a center. But because of the demand in the Sangre Grande region, Toco, Manzalina, Sangre Grande, it is difficult for us to relocate from Sangre Grande at this time.
What about the Shagwana Center?
The Shagwana Center is the same. We have a MUS center in Main Road, Shagwanas, that we continue to operate. However, we have submitted also proposals to the ministry to construct a center at Woodford Lodge. But again, it's because of the funding challenges.
But did you get an allocation in this budget for the Shagwanas MICIT Woodford Lodge Center?
There was an allocation, but again, it wasn't dedicated.
Are you going to be building it at all?
Our plans is to build a center at Shagwanas.
When is that going to happen?
As soon as funding is available.
So you don't have anything that you will do? Are drawings in place?
Drawings have been completed. The infrastructural work has been completed. We are, depending on the availability of funding, what we have thought about so far is thinking about contingency plans in terms of rescaling the plan itself. As it is, the original plan was somewhere on about 25 million. So what we have been doing as management and discussing with the ministry, how can we, if funding is limited, we can downscale the project so that we can have our own.
Do you have
facility.
any plans for staff reduction in 2019, 2020?
As it is now, none.
So nobody will be sent home, retrenched, severed?
As it is now.
You're on record, eh?
As it
I'm
is
asking
now.
the question again. Well, do you have any intention?
I want to jump in here.
Okay.
Let me jump in here. If we don't have the money, we will have to retrench. I want to contradict my CEO. I cannot go on record and saying that we will not retrench this year. If we don't have the money, it is the highest cost in any budget, wages, we may have to.
So, Chairman, since you're on record,
yes, sir.
Are there any, given the circumstances that are in front of you now in terms of the finances, are there any immediate plans you're looking at to reduce staff?
I wouldn't say there are immediate plans, but it seems as though it is not too far off on the horizon if the funding continues as it is, sir.
Good. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to follow up on something. Through the chair. Mr. Chairman or Mr. Ramaran, Tobago.
Oh, sorry.
I know that the Technology Center, which is the flagship center in Tobago, there were about 4 satellite areas in Tobago where you were conducting programs or thereabouts.
2.
2.
There's a,
but those now have been closed down.
They have
and,
been.
And everyone is now in.
There were 3 at one time. They're all now consolidated in the one center.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up that. Fast, as soon as you finish up about 3 other areas.
On the notes again I'm reading here, I noticed that from 16 to 17, there has been a significant increase in legal and professional fees from 588,000 to 2.8 million. Could you give us a little explanation of that?
Yeah, primarily legal and professional fees accounts for a number of things. Again, it accounts for legal fees, which will arise out of primarily industrial relation issues. We've had one issue that we had to sort out within that financial period. In addition, there was some professional payments we had to make, as far as I can recall. And these particularly dealt with developing staff, training and development. So those are some elements that was included in there, and it related to the master craftsman training that we had conducted in 2017.
This significant amount, that increase, that is for training of the master craftsman. What is it for? Apart from the legal fee.
Right. In 2017, we trained 20 master craftsmen, 15 in electrical and 5 in auto. It's totally aligned to what Chairman Professor Imber was indicating earlier on in terms of what MIC is doing is different from other institutions in terms of developing our staff to be ready for the world of work and to change the landscape a bit. So we focused a lot on the electrical, and that was in line with the mechatronics particularly, and also too in terms of automotive, the plan to move within the hybrid realm of training.
What? Okay.
Just a follow-up on that. So may I take it then that you've sort of done like a needs assessment and you've identified growth poles for training? Yes? Yes. Now, you mentioned we couldn't make the mass costumes, they were being made in China. Why can't we do the mass costumes in Trinidad and treat that as a growth pole?
That's a difficult question. This is a difficult question for MIC. I don't know how, I really don't know how to answer that. It's like the molds. It costs much cheaper. So even if MIC decided that they were going to make molds for mass costumes and so on, I think the China import will continue, as it has in many areas. But I mention in mass because that has been a dramatic turnabout. It was gradual, but it's dramatic in that, I mean, I know, I'm into pan a lot. I know many pan people who got their jerseys printed away, some in China, so that I'm not saying it was All Stars. I'm not saying it was Exodus. I'm not saying it was Invaders, but they had their jerseys bought and printed away and got them there. That's the reality of the world the world economy,
but
the world market.
I know MIC can't answer this solely, but
Yeah.
it's a huge hemorrhaging of money. And the irony is that the mass is supposed to be indigenous here. And so I am thinking that an investment into that would be down to our advantage down the road. Again, the point of solar panels. Africa is predicted to be coming into its own in the 21st century, and largely because of the use of deploying vast amounts of solar panels in a place where the sun actually shines. What are we doing about solar panels in Trinidad and Tobago? We have...
Well, I think I mentioned before that we have had people trained in photovoltaics, which is the science behind solar power. And we are hoping that there are some RFPs out for solar panels, some small, some larger. So MIC is getting itself to train people and to get involved in that area, particularly in the training. Now, as you mentioned, mass, cultural thing, MIC has a program in pan tuning because we have recognized that that is something that, not that we are losing it, people say we're losing it, we're not losing it, but a large share of the market for pans are being satisfied by people outside of Trinidad and Tobago. So we have a program, it is a major in one of the mechanical engineering journeyman programs in pan tuning. And actually NGC was impressed with what we were doing, and NGC in fact hired us to train people from their pan side. NGC sponsors 4 pan sides, and they have asked us to help those pan sides get some tuners, some trained people in the tuners. So we have gotten involved in the cultural field. I suppose mainly because of my influence on my work and so on in the pan area.
Chairman Mark.
Yeah. I just, Mr. Chairman, the CEO mentioned about some matters at the industrial relations level that might have cost MIC some extra monies. Could you provide this committee in writing a full list of all current litigation matters,
yeah,
and the cost to the MIC in terms of both legal, professional, industrial, in writing? You don't have to give us that.
We'll do that. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to clarify is that in your submission, you had indicated that the MIC Institute of Technology had not submitted any performance review or appraisal report. Mr. Chairman, could you provide this committee with a time frame for the completion of these reports?
When we got your communication and request, we realized that there were a few things that you had asked, and we had everybody diving into the performance monitoring manual and saying, hey, you know, we have done 90% of what we're supposed to do in supplying things, but there were 1 or 2 things we didn't do. So let's do it fast before we go before this committee. So we have fulfilled everything up to now.
Right.
And we did send the last performance.
Oh, so that has been forwarded?
That has gone to the minister has to sign it, so I guess it's on his desk. So that was sent to him a week ago or something.
All right, but that will be subsequently forwarded to the committee.
Well, when he signs it, I don't know. We'll ask him for it.
So we have to depend. We have to depend on the minister signing off.
The minister has to sign it because it's an evaluation. It's a sort of self-evaluation,
okay.
And the minister has to say, "I agree with what you say."
All right. May I also ask, when are you going to finalize in the short term the following policies, which you already committed in draft form?
Yes.
Project management protocol, risk management policy, fraud policy, and a whistleblower policy. You indicated that you have that in draft form.
Yeah,
when are you going to finalize them?
Yeah, give us 3 months. If I may so plead.
Yeah, fast.
Member Antoine.
And my question to the two ministries, going back to the 50% cut in subvention, that resulted in a number of challenges for MICIT. What strategies have the ministries implemented to deal with these challenges, and how effective have their strategies been in dealing with these challenges to MICIT?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Given the 50% cut in subvention that resulted in challenges to the MICIT, what strategies have the ministries implemented to deal with these challenges, and how effective?
Member, the Ministry of Education has 11 agencies, state agencies that falls under its remit. And across the board, I'll be honest with you, we have had a cut. What we have been able to do is that we have, in fact, been writing and requesting additional, we have submitted cabinet notes. The mid-year review, we would request additional funds to cover. But as we said, we are beginning to rationalize. In the area of the TVET, we are beginning to look at rationalizing the programs, looking at a framework and then looking at the providers. But what we have done over the years is to try to increase the amount of funds during the mid-year review, or where we have shortfalls, we will try to ensure that we provide additional funds to these agencies, because and let me reiterate again, it's 11 state agencies that now fall under the Ministry of Education.
But I'm focusing on MICIT, so therefore they can look forward to something in the mid-year review?
That, well, we would have, once they made this submission to us, which they have, we would then forward it for consideration.
And has MICIT made any overtures to Ministry of Education?
I'm gratified that we are associated with MIT so often. Very gratified. Yes, as the PS just said, we have made a submission because actually we're in dire straits right now. Dire straits right now.
And the Ministry of Finance Investment Division, any response?
Good morning, everybody. The Investments Division welcomes the rationalization of the state enterprises that are under the line ministry of the Ministry of Education. However, given the scarce resources that we have, the Ministry of Finance would have to distribute accordingly. Ministry of Education is one of the largest ministries, and therefore, as the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education said, she would make submissions for the mid-year review, and that would be for the consideration of the Minister of Finance.
But we're not talking about a cut with a cutlass. You want a cut with a scalpel.
Understood.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As we are the Ministry of Finance, can I ask the Ministry of Finance whether you are satisfied with all the reporting relationships that you have so designated to the MICIT?
Well,
or are there any concerns?
We have some concerns. Prior to this year, we received financial statements. We didn't receive some of the reports that we would have requested, and we would have reminded the state enterprise, like other state enterprises who have not complied, that they needed to submit their reports.
So you're saying that the MICIT did not comply?
prior to 2019.
In which areas again?
Well, we received their signed financial statements, as I said. We did not receive board minutes of meetings. We did not receive their quarterly reports, their cash flows of operations, their litigation reports, the return of awards of contract reports, their internal audit reports, and their investment in securities reports. However, we noted this year that there has been some level of compliance.
Do they still have outstanding matters for you of those listed?
Yes.
For how long now?
Well, we have never received some of these statements prior to this year, but we do not have sight of their internal audit reports at the moment and their investments in securities as at 31st December.
And those are mandatory items for you?
Yes, in accordance with the SCPMM.
So they're not complying with the requirements of Ministry of Finance?
Yes.
Having said that, are there any other areas that you would like to enumerate, that you would like to see a better reporting relationship, apart from those that you mentioned?
Well, the chairman would have alluded to it earlier, where we had some concern about the financial statements and the auditor's report. Well, we would have brought it up at the AGMs, that we would have been present as representatives of Corporation Seoul. And we understand, and they have given us assurances at these AGMs that they are looking into the matter.
If the chairman could indicate by when you think these matters will be forwarded, the items that are outstanding and required for Ministry of Finance.
I will put you on to the CEO, and maybe Mr. Munilal also, both, as I say, ACCA people. I'm a little puzzled by the last statement, however. I did say that we had 5 qualifying statements by the auditors. We have cleared up 4. The last one, I am saying I don't know how we could clear it up. It's a legacy issue for at least 15 years. I don't know how we could clear it up. So I don't think with respect to audited accounts, up-to-date accounts, we have a problem. I am a little surprised to hear that we have so many outstanding things from the ministry.
Yeah.
As far as I know, these reports have been going into the ministry.
Something is amiss.
I wouldn't say something is amiss. The most important thing is our audited accounts. I mean, if you have audited accounts.
Well, there are some things that are even not present in the audited accounts that I alluded to before, which the Ministry of Finance is also confirming.
Yeah, I'm not a finance person, so let me stop there. I think I should stop there.
All right. Well, before you go on to, I know you're asking the 2 other persons to answer. I would like to ask you to consider answering very soon afterwards that you answer. I want to get some details on 2 projects, the St. Martin project that you said that you engaged in, because you were also in Grenada, you said, and St. Vincent. Some details of the St. Martin project as a revenue earner, and also the bespoke tailoring, which when it was read in the budget, and I recall particularly, it was page 58 of the budget speech, the top left-hand corner, 1 paragraph, where the bespoke tailoring program was supposed to be, and it is read as being assigned to the UTT. And I'd like to get I'll ask some questions with respect to that. So I just alert you to that.
Before I answer the financial ones, I can give you answers to both the St. Martin project and and I will leave them to give details of the costing and so on. The people in St. Martin, NEPA, that's the body, that's the sort of equivalent of MIC in St. Martin. Of course, this is St. Martin with 2 A's, S-I-N-T, so that's the Dutch side, as opposed to the French side with the St. Martin. They got in touch with us and told us that they were shopping around in the Caribbean, throughout the Caribbean, for an agency that could assist them in training locals, because after they had these 2 massive hurricanes, well, one in particular, the Irma and Maria, they found that they didn't have many locals who could rebuild simple things, houses and so on. So masons and carpenters in particular they didn't, and plumbers and electrical people, those 4, they didn't have sufficient. If you know, St. Martin is an area with a huge expatriate population, if you like. An expatriate, not necessarily from Europe or United States, but Caribbean people who come in there, do work, and they go, and so on. So they came to us, and we said, sure, we can do this. So they had some World Bank funding, so we gave them a proposal of what we could do for them, and that has been running for some time. And we are supposed to start a second cohort of trainers in those areas. We first started with the masonry and the carpentry, because that was the main one.
How many persons?
About 70 people. They first started with a sort of pilot project. They actually sent down 7 people here, and so that they visited twice to see how this was going and if we really can train people in those areas quickly. And then now we of course we are sending people up there in St. Martin.
Has it been a very profitable project?
It's profitable for sure. I mean, it's not going to make tens of millions, but it will make a few $1 million, yes. Now,
and the approach was you go there and train?
Yes, because of the numbers of people now. They first sent 7 people, but when you start to say 70 people, it's much easier for us to send 1 person.
You're not using the blended approach?
Not yet.
Because the blended approach might help to reduce some of your costs.
You know, at the level of, again, of the street people, a blended approach is not the easiest thing to do, especially with a very hands-on programs. Is not easy to do. We have plans, because they have asked us also to train their trainers in NIPA, in the school there. So we do have plans in the second cohort of training to use a blended approach.
That will reduce costs substantially too, in terms of travel and accommodation and long stay.
Well, unfortunately, fortunately we have people.
Have you had long stay issues?
Yes, we have had guys up there for 3 months, 4 months. They seem happy.
Yeah, it is. All right, so
that's that. The bespoke. Now, the bespoke program, the Ministry of Trade and Industry made a request to MIC if we could house the bespoke program. House it. So we said, well, listen, we really don't have the space now. We are trying to cut back on centers. We cut back on one in Tunapuna, we cut back on one in Trinity, and so on. We don't have the space, but we just built, we just put up a building on our main site. And if it is that you want to use it, ministry, you're going to pay us our rent. Because we're really in a tight squeeze. We can't just take on a program just like that. So they said, fine. And the bespoke tailoring program was looking for approval. It's called program approval. Accreditation is at the high level, ACTT. The NTA for levels 1 and 2 in our qualifications framework. The NTA are the people who would give what they call program approval and center approval. The accreditation people call it
institutional,
and well, they haven't started program accreditation, but they use accreditation.
Yeah.
So what the NTA reported back to MIC, they said, listen, for that program to get approval, trying to get approval on their own will be extremely difficult. So what we suggest is that they get it through MIC, and that process is almost completed.
So the program, you did not get, that program does not have program approval by the National Training Agency?
Not yet. But
neither does it have, it is being housed at the MICIT.
Is housed at the MICIT, and
but it is not managed by the MICIT.
Well, no. MICIT,
so in a sense, it is not a throughput accreditation from MICIT.
Well, it was suggested by the NTA that is the only way they could get it in a reasonable time. So
but it does not have a nomenclature of accredited program.
Approved.
It is not an accredited program.
Not at the moment. It's almost there.
It's either you're accredited or you're not accredited. So in this case, it is not accredited, from what you're saying.
You have almost there, because...
No, but it's not accredited at this point.
No, it's not approved.
But there was a graduation.
Yes.
But so there was a graduation to a non-accredited program.
If you want to put it that way, yes.
Right. And who bore the cost of it?
The cost of what?
Of the program.
Not MIC.
Who did?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the ministry.
The ministry.
It was also.
But was it all a UTT in it?
Huh?
You remember UTT I indicated was the budget was read and it
No, I don't know about this UTT business. Maybe when the budget was read at that time, the ministry was scouting around and they were asking UTT, but they ended up in MIC.
Okay, so the graduation took place.
Yes, a graduation took place.
And the MIC really, was it at the MIC?
No,
it
was at Stormyers.
Yeah. And you all were just invited?
Well, I was invited, yes. I even spoke.
All right, I'll come back to it.
But that raises an interesting point, because Ministry of Education, in instances where program providers are other state enterprises, what, if anything, is the ministry attempting to do or doing in terms of coordinating programs so that you're not competing with each other or getting best value?
As Professor would, Chair, as Professor would have alluded, the Ministry of Trade and Industry would have approached the Ministry of Education with respect to the bespoke, I think it was Savile Row, Academy, too. And so we would have met with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, MIC, IT, as well as UTT, because we were told that the fashion industry is at UTT. And so what we would have done is that we would have met and we've been coordinating to ensure through the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry that, in fact, the as you said, the center approval and the program approval was completed. So I have been liaising with both NTE and MTI, as well as the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So we have been facilitating. That is the role we have played thus far.
If I may. All right. Yeah, we want it, but, all right, I just wanted to find out, I know it's housed by you, but therefore they will come to your gate and security and so on. All the students who were on that, do you have an idea how many there were?
27 as far as I know.
All Trinidad and Tobago nationals?
No. There was somebody from Barbados, I believe. I'm not sure if there were any other nationals.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
With reference to our compliance with the State Enterprise Performance Monitoring Manual, we have been compliant at this time with all requirements except the submission of the internal audit reports. As the chairman would have highlighted earlier, we were slightly tardy with the submission of some, but come the 26th of March, we would have sent quite a bit of these documents to the Ministry of Finance, notably the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Michelle Durham Kisun. So just for clarity, and again, I have the dates here, we would have sent the quarterly status of investments and securities portfolio, just by way of example, return on award of contracts on the 26th of March. So the only thing at this time we have pending or outstanding is the submission of the internal audit reports.
May I ask?
Could I just answer to that? I think we were of the impression that if we send the board minutes to our line ministry, it would get distributed. So if we didn't send it to investment division also, we must apologize and realize that we had to send it to both, because we regularly send the minutes. Yeah, I'm not saying the monitoring manual has some stringent deadlines. 1 week after this and one. Sometimes I'm not around to sign the board minutes. I'm chairman. They want me as chairman to sign it. I might be away or something. So we have, as he said, met all now. I mean, when we got your stuff, I went there and I said, hey, anything you have that you have not submitted, please do it now. So when we go there, we could say we have done what we're supposed to do and we'll continue to obey the rules, except for the little stringent things that we'll want a little deadline sometimes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to make it very clear that the accounting aspect, as you said, Mr. Chairman, is up to mark. In other words, you have submitted up to 2018, 2017, 2018, so far. The performance manual on state enterprises always isn't a legal document. We all have to follow the guidelines there. And if what I was told a short while ago by the official out of the investments division, that this seemed to have been a practice at the level of the MIC, not to submit a number of documents outside of what was identified. So even though you are claiming that you are sending these things to your line ministry and not to the investments division, the performance manual makes it very clear that these things must go to the investments division. So I would suggest that as chairman, you really rather act to your people and have these things sent almost immediately as outlined by the official from the investment division. And further, from here on in, these things must be sent on a regular and frequent basis. Because what we are being told here is that they have not been receiving these things for a very long time. So it might have been preceding you as the chairman. So this is something that we have to deal with and address once and for all. You happen to be in the driver's seat, and therefore you will take charge from here on in.
Mr. Chairman, I take the advice and the mild scolding, as the Americans say, under advisement, sir. Absolutely, and we will comply. And I don't know if I'll have to read the riot act or wield the big stick or whatever, but I'll tell them, hey, don't let me go into a committee again.
And may I ask, Mr. Chairman, health and safety, Mr. Chairman. You know and I know that's a very, very serious matter. I think you and the chairman at his, or the company in its submission, indicated that you are partially compliant with the Act, which again leaves a lot to be desired. And you mentioned areas that have been enhanced, health and safety risk assessment and health surveillance and even a public address system for emergency response notification. What I want to ask through the chairman, how long has MICIT been in partial compliance with the Occupational Safety and Health Act? That is what I'd like to have clarified.
All right, we have 6 officers dedicated to that area. One of them is, of course, head of the unit, if we may call it that. We, as far as I know, we have tried our best to comply. OSHA is, again, quite stringent, but we have tried our best to comply. But we have had a visit, and it's on that visit we were told that there are certain things are lacking. We got a very good report, but there are certain things that are lacking. And once we were told that, we said, hey, we have to find a way of doing that. Yeah, and one of them, as I say, the most important or most expensive one there will be the question of, in all our centers, putting in some sort of PA system for, we're looking for interim measures, whether we get a bullhorn or something at the moment, but we have to put a regular wired or wireless PA system.
Any time frame, Mr. Chairman, for these things to be complied with?
I would, because of the cost of one of them, again, I'll have to ask for a few months. The first 2 are easy. We have really implemented that right away. The last one, because of the cost of a PA system in 14, 15 centers, we'll need some time.
But do you not think that the life, you see, health and safety, as you know, as a professional, is a very serious matter. And a PA system is critical. So in the event of an emergency, you can communicate with all of your members of staff rapidly. I don't think money can substitute for life in an emergency. So I would like to respectfully suggest, sir, that you give this utmost priority. Talk to your line ministry. Let your line ministry talk to finance and indicate that this is a law that is being breached at this time, and you need the money, as Mark Santos would say, in order to comply with the law. And I would say that it should be done within a matter of maybe 2 weeks or a month max. But I don't think we should go into months for a matter that could deal with the life and the safety of employees. Because the last thing you would like, Mr. Chairman, is for anything to happen untoward. And because of this deficiency, you live with that for the rest of your life. So I would like to suggest that we take urgent steps to address this matter.
Well, as I say, the interim measures we are using is, you know, like what they popularly call a bullhorn for a safety warning, which is something that, because of our centers, can be heard if you go in the yard and you really blast it. But that is not the final solution.
We might have to make a visit to all your centers, sir. We'll have to make a visit, a site visit, to see if that is adequate to deal with an emergency in the context of the life, health, and safety of the workers and your employees.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think we'll have to do that.
Before I invite closing comments, your mandate, you say your primary role is to be the catalyst for developing technical and vocational competencies for national and regional industries through quality training, innovation, manufacturing, construction, and engineering products and services. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to see changed or done in helping you meet that mandate and role?
More money. I hope that doesn't sound too crass, but to expand on what I said before, more money, yes, for training per se, but we really need to wake up in this country and realize that we have to spend much more money on innovation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would now like to invite closing comments from officials of MIC Institute of Technology, Ministry of Education, and then the Ministry of Finance, in that order. Thank you.
With MIC?
Yes, please.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the JSC for waking us up and making us send all those reports right away. And as to endorse the member, Mr. Mark's caution that from now on, we need to do that regularly and don't lapse any further. I'm normally a very calm person. I was a little worried and I said, boy, I wonder how much jamming they will give you today. So I found it was enjoyable, really. It was enjoyable. I mean, you have pointed out many things, asked us questions to make us question ourselves and to improve. So I really want to thank the JSC for inviting us. You're going to invite us again. I think we'll have much more positive answers the next time, at least in the areas we have control over. So thank you for your comments. Some of them were mildly scolding, but mildly. And I take it very graciously and under advisement to repeat as the Americans say. So thank you very much.
Chair and members of the committee, MICIT is one of the agencies which offers technical and vocational training, industry and construction services at centers located throughout Trinidad and Tobago. One of the things that was brought up today is the need to rationalize. For example, the question was asked, what are you doing differently or what are you doing very similar in terms of program delivery for YTEP as well as NESC? There was also a question with respect to how are we looking at industry and how industry could have even improved or helped in terms of even ensuring that we probably looked at different ways that we would have been able to provide stipends to our young persons. We were also alerted to the fact that MIC is also looking outwardly in terms of ensuring that they begin to look at revenue generation. MIC, as again, the question of us looking outward is that we need to understand what is happening in the sector, the industrial craft sector, and we needed to see what probably areas that we need to branch out in for training. What was clear is that the Ministry of Education, we need to rationalize and ensure that our programs are well funded, or we at least receive more funding from the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Education takes on board the fact that we have been reaching out to all of our 11 agencies, and we have been requesting that they comply even in areas that were not in the SEPM for the ministry. We have been requesting that this also submit to us. And we will work along with the Ministry of, with MICIT to ensure that this is done. And we know that the minister would have had, as you said, a performance review, that document that was requested, that at least we be able to sign. Once it's signed off, that we submit, return the submission to MICIT for onward submission to both the Ministry of Finance and to the committee. Thank you so very much for having us.
Thank you. Ministry of Finance.
The Investments Division, Ministry of Finance, would like to thank the committee for inviting us to this JSC. We are happy to hear today that there will be continued compliance with the SCPMM. A point to note is that the SCPMM has the deadlines for submission of all the reports, so we look forward to compliance. Say it again. Okay. Okay. Well, the Investments Division, Ministry of Finance, would like to thank the committee for inviting us to this JSC. And as I said, we note the commitment for compliance with the SCPMM and the reports that are required. And we would just like to highlight that the SCPMM has the deadlines for submissions, and we look forward to their compliance. Thank you.
And can I just make a plug for both Ministry of Education and MIC, Institute of Technology? I know it's a go-over season, but we have to invest in innovation. We have to invest in skills and technology.
I would convey your comments and your concerns. Thank you.
Well, I thank you, and I wish to thank Chairman Imber and the various ministry representatives for your contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, it would appear that this concludes our business today. I would like to declare the meeting suspended, and in closing, may I thank the company, the media, and the viewing and listening audience. Good day.